Hello and welcome to What's Wrong With, where I take a look at a wrestling thing that sucks and dissect it and figure out what's wrong with it. As I talk, we'll be assigning points to things that were good or bad, and we'll see at the end whether a thing is good or bad. For example, if I said Cody Rhodes tore his pec, that's bad. But then he had an awesome match with Seth Rollins right after. That's good. But then Cody was off our screens for 7 months. That's bad. But then his Rumble return was great. That's good. You get the idea. We're launching this new series today by looking at Hell in a Cell 2019. Can we start with something else? Like, we've got to do this one right away. We can't even build up to this one. I'm being told we have to do this one first. All right. Well then, let's begin with Hell in a Cell 2019. Christ on a bike. Now, to truly understand the unbridled show that was Hell in a Cell 2019, we should have a look at Bray Wyatt himself and The Fiend. You know, really get in there, delve into the psyche and how it was shaping the wrestling landscape at the time. After being perpetually and unapologetically booked horrendously throughout basically his whole career, Bray Wyatt had once again become the hottest thing in wrestling by unveiling The Fiend, complete with the Firefly Funhouse vignettes that played for weeks before his re-debut match at SummerSlam, where he killed Finn Balor. It finally looked like the tethers had been taken off Wyatt's creativity, and he was here to hurt, heal, and holy shit, is that his new mask? That's creepy looking. This was all masterfully done, and in a week where this brand new company called All Elite Wrestling was launching its weekly show known as Dynamite, wrestling fans were arguably more excited for the upcoming Fiend match. The build wasn't without its flaws though. After Wyatt's first match back as The Fiend against Balor, people were very much on board with the character, but when it became clear he was going after the Universal Champion as his next step after that, it was a bit of a leap up the card, and that's odd, but not the end of the world, because they can just have The Fiend win the Universal Championship and everything will be fine in the world again, right? Oh, no, sorry, it says in my notes here, keep dreaming, little man. Seems a bit rude from me to me. I mean, you can't have The Fiend lose in his second match, not after you've done so much work to make him the most threatening and scary guy on the roster, literally and figuratively making him a monster and an unbeatable force that will continue to be unbeatable until a weakness is discovered down the line and exploited like every horror movie villain ever, right? Meanwhile, there was also the saga of Seth Rollins, who'd become WWE's premier babyface in 2018, going on a hell of a run at the top of the card and becoming Monday Night Rollins. Defeating Brock Lesnar earlier that year at WrestleMania, Rollins was ready to have his babyface run as the company's top champion, except he then entered a feud with Baron Corbin, which I'm reliably informed, not good. But then Rollins had his own horror story completely separate from The Fiend. He did Twitter bad. After the announcement of AEW in January of that year, tensions between promotions had reignited, with Rollins becoming not just the Universal Champion, but the championing voice of WWE, and how it was the best wrestling company in the world. He was a company guy, the company guy, arguably. And after entering his feud with Baron Corbin, Rollins doubled down, coming out of the Stomping Grounds pay-per-view. Remember that show? It wasn't good. Calling WWE the best wrestling in the world, and daring anybody to find a wrestler alive who does what he does as well as he does it as often as he does it. And while Rollins being proud of his body of work isn't a bad thing, after one Mr. William Ospreay chimed in to say he was alive and was very much in the conversation of best wrestler in the world at the time, old Sethy boy, oh, well, he didn't exactly take it too well. Here are two guys proud of their ability in wrestling, so they could absolutely talk each other up, show respect, and let everyone know that they are two of the best going. That is not what happened. Seth told Ospreay he was a little guy, compared his bank account size, and sarcastically told him to keep up the good work, while mentioning WWE already had a version of Ospreay in Ricochet. Ospreay simply told Seth he was moving the goalposts and said he'd succeeded in Seth's challenge of finding someone who could do what he does as well as he does it as often as he does it. It wasn't a good look for Seth, supposed leader of the company, and it was an odd turn for a guy fans wanted to like, a guy who'd been through those indies, a guy who was a true wrestler in a company of sports entertainers. And with Ospreay having turned down WWE before, indicating that money wasn't the primary factor for him, for Seth to then say how much more money he makes than Ospreay only serves to make him look like an arrogant bully. WWE's top babyface, just as a reminder. This was just the beginning of fans turning on Rollins, which was compounded by the booking of the actual feud between he and Bray Wyatt before Hell in a Cell, with Seth cowering in fear from The Fiend and generally acting like a little scaredy cat around him, which to a degree is a good thing because it makes The Fiend feel scary, which is the point. It also makes your Universal Champion look like a coward. Not great. So we get to the show itself, Hell in a Cell 2019, which started off really well. Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks was a little bit of a banger inside Hell in a Cell, and Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns teamed up to take on Eric Rowan and Luke Harper in a tornado tag match, which was also real good fun. Then, Randy Orton defeated Ali, the Kabuki Warriors defeated Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, Braun Strowman and the Viking Raiders beat the OC, Chad Gable defeated King Corbin, putting an end to their god-awful feud until it continued in a backstage segment, and Charlotte Flair won the SmackDown Women's Championship from Bayley, which put an end to the section of the show, which, I don't know if you've been counting, is 5 matches on this 8-match card. But never mind all that, it's time for the main event. The video package hyping the title match was real good. Rollins entering with his usual hype but being serious inside the cell itself was good, despite the cell being red, and then out came The Fiend with his undeniably awesome entrance. But then they began wrestling. Oh dear, there's red lights in a red cell. Oh, cock. The Fiend no-sold offense from Rollins for about 5 minutes and beat him up, which was all really fun. Right then, about time for a brief comeback flurry from Rollins, then time for The Fiend to put him away and win the belt. I'm sorry, misread my notes there. Time for a comeback flurry, The Fiend hitting Sister Abigail, then Rollins kicking out, being mildly crushed by some kind of hammer, then hitting 3 consecutive curb stomps, followed by a pedigree, followed by another stomp. That's weird. Not sure how I misread that the first time. Oh, but The Fiend kicked out at 1, which is good, I guess. But those no-sells are really pushing it now. I really hope that doesn't continue. What's that? Time for more stomps? Oh, my favorite. How many? 5. Oh, amazing, incredible. Mwah, chef's kiss. No notes. 5 stomps, 5 stars. After the 5 stomps, a chorus of boos began ringing out from the crowd. See, this was for multiple things. There's no good way out of it at this point. Either Wyatt stays down and Rollins wins, boo, or Wyatt gets up and Rollins' stomp has been completely weakened to the point of roughly the same strength as a punch, meaning all the other people Rollins put away with the same move look worse retroactively. Boo. People just wanted The Fiend to win, not this schmoz of nonsensical no-selling. Some no-selling, good. Rendering your Universal Champion's finishing move completely ineffective, bad. Rollins ended up slowly burying The Fiend under a pile of stuff from under the ring, including a ladder, a toolbox, a chair, and essentially giving The Fiend some nice armor to protect him from the sledgehammer shot that was about to come his way. But that's me getting ahead of myself, sorry. I forgot we have the referee arguing with Seth about what he was about to do first. I have a quote here. "Do not do that. Think about what you're doing. Are you gonna kill this man? Are you gonna kill this guy? You can't do this, man. Think about what you doing. This is not who you are. Put the hammer down. Please, you don't need to kill this guy." So Seth hit the pile of rubble with a sledgehammer and the referee called off the match. Here's a clip of me and Laurie during our live reaction to the show back in 2019. What? They DQ'd it. They DQ'd it. They actually DQ'd it in a Hell in a Cell.
You're joking. Oh, you can't put The Fiend on a stretcher. Oh. You dumb dickhead.
So not only was this a disqualification inside Hell in a Cell, the second time they'd done that in 2 years, this was The Fiend being beaten, with Rollins holding on to the title. They tried to make amends with The Fiend getting back up and mandible clawing Rollins while he choked on his own blood to end the show, but it was far too little and far too late. And far too shit. The crowd rejected the match entirely, with chants of bullshit, refund, restart the match, and most poignantly, AE-dub in, once again, the same week that Dynamite launched. Trending on Twitter not long after the show was hashtag cancel WWE Network, always a good sign, and even X-Pac on WWE's own watch-along show called out the booking decision in a frankly hilarious clip. Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter summed up the occasion quite nicely, calling the match perhaps the worst main event in pro wrestling history, where the fault doesn't at all lie in either of the competitors, with the blame instead being placed on the red lighting, the match being about 65% Seth's facial expressions to The Fiend no-selling his offense, the babyface that the crowd repeatedly rejected with increasing animosity through the match, and the wonky-ass finish that literally nobody can explain. This was the culmination of some deep unrest in the storyline up to that point. The Fiend had still been the hottest thing in the company despite his sudden upward thrust into the title scene, even after avoiding the question of, why does The Fiend care about the Universal Championship at all? Which was quite the hurdle to get over in the first place. Because all this did was scream that WWE didn't know what they were doing. They saw how hot Bray Wyatt's new character was, shoved him into the title picture, and then realized they didn't want him to win the title after all. So they came up with one of the worst ways out to have Rollins hold on to the title or having The Fiend win. There is no good way out of this situation. So in the words of Laurie Blake on the live reaction stream,
just don't book the match!
After the show went off the air, Seth was booed out of the building, fans turning him heel in the process, his babyface run over. Well, WWE might have messed up the Universal Championship, but at least they got the WWE Championship right, didn't they? Kofi Kingston at the top of the company? What's that? Sorry? Oh, he lost 2 days before Hell in a Cell? In 8 seconds? To Brock Lesnar. Yeah, that's the thing that happened. The vitriol thrown from fans towards this shithousery wasn't just because of WWE yet again ruining a gimmick of Bray Wyatt's, though that is a pretty big factor. Fans had also just gone through WWE ruining a thing they liked 2 days beforehand, with Kofi Kingston's WWE title reign coming to a very abrupt and Lesnar-shaped end. This was the peak of fan resentment in WWE. Another example of fans learning the hard way to never get their hopes up for anything good, because WWE was sure to take it away at a moment's notice. It was the Nexus again, it was the Wyatt family, it was Asuka's undefeated streak, it was Damian Mizdow, it was Rusev Day, it was Zack Ryder, it was Cesaro with Paul Heyman, it was Christian's World Heavyweight title reign, it was the summer of Punk. A thing with all the potential in the world, a thing that fans wanted, and a thing that WWE just decided wasn't worth their time. If you didn't want to have The Fiend defeat Seth Rollins for the belt, don't book the match. They tried to make amends with The Fiend winning the belt off Rollins at Crown Jewel a month later, but once again, too little, too Saudi Arabia. In one fell swoop, WWE had ruined The Fiend as a character, Seth Rollins' babyface run, and it was another nail in the coffin for the Hell in a Cell match stipulation, as well as ruining what could have been a good pay-per-view if it just had a similarly good main event to equal the opening 2 matches. This was an assassination. A completely unintentional, yet ill-advised and idiotic assassination. Something that destroyed Bray Wyatt as a performer, aside from one Firefly Funhouse match, until his return to the company in October 2022, which is 3 years later, and forced WWE's hand to turn Seth Rollins heel, which is only just now coming out of the other side of into babyface superstardom, which is also over 3 years later. Hell in a Cell 2019 is known for one match and one match only. One of the worst and most damaging matches WWE has ever put on, and it's a mistake they never made again. So that's it. Final total, minus 63. Christ, gang, this was a bad show. Do not make me do this again. Not this show. Subscribe, though. Like the video if you haven't already. If you want to watch more light-hearted content, check out Ollie and Luke predicting every wrestler's WWE WrestleMania 39 in 3 words or less. Here's a clip. They get to be happy. I don't.
Pins. Sami Zayn.